In the heart of the Vatican, where history and mystery intertwine, there unfolds a tale that could alter the course of ecclesiastical tradition. Under the cloak of night, Pope Leo XIV, known for his enigmatic charm and progressive vision, embarks on clandestine adventures beyond the majestic walls of the Holy See. What drives the Supreme Pontiff to such stealthy escapades? Or, more intriguingly, what is he up to that he wishes to keep from prying eyes? This tale promises to unravel secrets that are hidden under the guise of moonlit wanderings. As the final chimes of the evening bell faded into the quiet stillness of the Vatican, an atmosphere of calm settled over the ancient walls, almost as if the entire sacred complex was holding its breath. Outside, the city of Rome shimmered under the gentle glow of the moon, casting long, mysterious shadows that danced across cobblestone streets and marble facades. It was in this enigmatic hour that Pope Leo XIV, known publicly as a leader of divine wisdom and unwavering faith, embarked on a clandestine journey that few could have imagined. Draped in a simple dark cloak that concealed his regal attire beneath, the Pope moved swiftly and silently through a hidden service corridor, taking care to avoid the heavily guarded main halls. His footsteps, muffled by centuries-old rugs, echoed softly as he navigated the labyrinthine passages of the Vatican. Only those intimately familiar with the ancient maze-like architecture could understand the precise, secret routes he chose, passages that often led to empty stairwells, unlit cellars, and back alleys that skirted the outer walls of the Holy See. His heart beat with a strange mixture of excitement and resolve as he approached a nondescript door tucked behind a seldom-used corridor. This was not a route prepared for the curious or the uninvited. It was a passage reserved for moments like these, when the leader of the church sought to slip away unnoticed, away from the glare of public adulation and ecclesiastical responsibilities. No one outside the immediate circle of trusted auxiliaries knew his plans, and even within the Vatican's grand halls, only a select few trusted enough to comprehend the gravity of such nocturnal escapades. As the Pope gently turned the old brass handle and pushed open the door, he stepped into a narrow alleyway that wound through the ancient city. Cobblestones, slick with a thin layer of dew, reflected the moonlight like tiny mirrors. Instinctually, he glanced around, ensuring he was not being followed. A habit drilled into him after years of quiet reflection and careful planning. The night was eerily silent save for the distant hoot of an owl and the faint clatter of a late-night market vendor packing up his stall. In this moment, Leo XIV felt a strange sense of liberation. Cloaked by darkness, he was no longer the sovereign pontiff, whose every word and gesture was scrutinized by the faithful and political alike. Here, beneath the cover of night, he was simply a man driven by an insatiable curiosity, a desire to understand the world beyond the sacred walls he governed, and perhaps to glimpse truths that even his closest advisors dared not ask about. He moved smoothly through the deserted streets, passing historic piazzas and ancient ruins, each step taking him farther from the city centre and closer to the unknown destinations he secretly longed to explore. His destination was a carefully selected place, the outskirts of Rome, where the city's noise faded into the darkness, leaving only the whispers of history and myth. As he approached a small, discreet gate leading into an old monastery grounds, he paused briefly to check that no passers-by or stray dogs had noticed him. Every detail mattered. Secrecy was his shield tonight. Unnoticed, he slipped through the gate, his silhouette blending into the shadows cast by twisted olive trees and crumbling stone walls. Here, in this secluded part of the city, he felt a rare sense of peace, an unspoken promise that whatever truths he sought just beyond the horizon would be worth the risk. The streets grew narrower and less maintained, and the air grew thicker with the scent of moss and ancient stone. In these quiet hours, memories of his previous sermons, council meetings, and public appearances seemed like distant echoes. Here, he was simply Leo, an ordinary man with extraordinary responsibilities and an even greater desire to understand the world beyond divine dogma. As he reached the entrance of a small, abandoned chapel, long forgotten by many, yet preserved by time, he paused once more. For a moment, he let the silence envelop him. Then, with a soft push, the door creaked open, revealing a dark interior that seemed to hold its own secrets. Inside, the flicker of a candle's flame revealed pews covered in dust and walls adorned with ancient symbols and faded frescoes. It was in this ghostly, quiet sanctuary that Leo XIV would begin his night's journey, step by step into a world of mysteries and secrets that could challenge the very foundations of his faith, yet perhaps lead to revelations that could shape the future of his papacy in ways he had never imagined. In the stillness of the night, Pope Leo XIV disappeared into the shadows, leaving behind the familiar safety of the Vatican walls, driven by a restless spirit of discovery and a silent vow to uncover truths hidden deep within the city's historic veins. Little did the world know that beneath his calm exterior, an extraordinary adventure was quietly unfolding, one that would test his faith, ignite curiosity, and leave the world speechless. Deep within the ancient and labyrinthine city of Rome, away from the bustling crowds and the sacred halls of the Vatican, lies a forgotten corner shrouded in mystery and history. It is a place where time seems to have paused, cloaked in layers of dust and silence, whispering stories of secrets long kept from the world. It was here that Pope Leo XIV found himself drawn once again, guided by a cautious instinct that had become second nature through years of careful planning. His clandestine journey had brought him to a hidden side door of an unassuming structure, an abandoned chapel that once served the community but had long since fallen into obscurity. In the pale light of the moon, Leo softly pushed open the creaking wooden door, revealing a narrow, dark passage that led into the depths of the old building. The air was thick with the scent of aged wood, damp stone, and the faint aroma of incense that had long since faded into oblivion. His footsteps barely made a sound on the uneven stone floor as he moved deeper inside, mindful of every move, every breath, each one calculated to avoid any sign of disturbance or alarm. The silence was deafening, broken only by the faint rhythm of his own heartbeat and the distant whisper of the night wind filtering through small cracks in the walls. The interior was a shadowy maze of crumbling columns, remnants of stained glass windows, and faded frescoes depicting biblical scenes now barely recognizable beneath layers of grime. Yet Leo's eyes darted swiftly from one feature to another, searching for a specific place, an old, shelved doorway that led down into a hidden chamber, a sanctuary of sorts that had remained untouched by time and human presence for decades. Every step was deliberate, knowing that discovery could mean exposure, or worse, capture. He finally reached the concealed door, expertly hidden behind a battered altar once dedicated to a saint long forgotten by modern worshippers. Gently, he pressed a hidden latch that he had memorized from centuries-old manuscripts, and to his relief, the mechanism responded with a faint click. The door swung open, revealing a narrow spiral staircase descending into darkness. Without hesitation, he stepped down, the cool air enveloping him as he descended into this subterranean world, a place where secrets and truths long buried within the bowels of the city were kept safe from prying eyes. The staircase led him into a small, clandestine chamber, illuminated only by the flickering flame of a lone candle. The air was thick with the musty scent of history, and the walls were lined with ancient scrolls, maps and manuscripts that appeared untouched by the centuries. In the centre of the room sat a sturdy wooden table, cluttered with open tomes and fragile parchments filled with handwritten notes, diagrams and cryptic symbols. Here, Leo XIV's hand reached out to retrieve an old, leather-bound book, one that had been hidden away for generations, a manuscript containing details of lost prophecies and forbidden knowledge that could shake the very foundations of faith if ever revealed. His fingers traced the faded ink, deciphering delicate symbols that hinted at secrets never meant for mortal eyes. Some inscriptions hinted at ancient rituals, others spoke of celestial alignments, and a few contained prophecies that foretold of monumental shifts in the spiritual and worldly realms. All of this knowledge was dangerous, yet the Pope's eyes burned with a fierce determination. He had come here to seek understanding, to uncover truths that could guide him in an uncertain future, and perhaps to find answers to questions that had haunted him in quiet moments of reflection. Around him, the room seemed afire with silent anticipation. The shadows cast by the flame flickered and danced, echoing the tremors of revelation that lurked on the edges of his consciousness. Leo knew that what lay within these pages could challenge doctrines, question his own beliefs, and shake the faith of millions if known publicly. Yet, it was also a chance, an opportunity to gain insight that might help him steer his church through turbulent times. He carefully traced the symbols and notes, feeling an almost spiritual connection to the scribes and mystics who had once guarded these secrets. As he pored over the ancient texts, his mind raced with possibilities. Could these prophecies be real? Were they divine messages, or mere myths woven into the fabric of history? Would revealing even a fragment of this knowledge undermine the authority he had so meticulously built? Or could it serve to strengthen the church by acknowledging truths long obscured? He considered carefully, knowing that every step he took now could shape not only his own fate, but the destiny of the entire church. Time seemed to suspend as he absorbed the significance of what he was uncovering. Outside, the world continued unaware of the depths of secrets buried beneath Rome's ancient streets. Inside this hidden chamber, Pope Leo XIV was immersed in a venture of profound importance, a silent pursuit that could either elevate or undo his standing, depending on how and when he chose to reveal what he now possessed. In the vast, rolling hills beyond the outskirts of Rome, where the city's grandeur faded into the tranquil embrace of nature, stood a humble, solitary hut. This was no ordinary dwelling, but a refuge steeped in legend and mystery. It had been long forgotten by most, hidden behind a veil of overgrown foliage, moss-covered stone, and quiet forests, where only the wind and occasional rustling of leaves dared disturb the silence. It was in this quiet haven that Pope Leo XIV found himself drawn to once again, not by necessity, but by a deep, almost spiritual instinct that called him to seek wisdom beyond the familiar confines of the Vatican spiritual hierarchy. Guided by the flickering light of the moon and the faint glow of his own conviction, Leo made his way through a winding, uneven path lined with gnarled trees and wildflowers, each step an act of deliberate silence. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth, pine, and the faint aroma of herbs from distant villages. Every sound was muffled, as if nature itself was conspiring to preserve a sacred silence, protecting the secrets that this humble hermit held within his simple dwelling. The Pope's heart pounded with a mixture of anticipation and humility, acutely aware of the significance of this clandestine meeting. As he approached the door, he paused for a moment, allowing his senses to attune to the serenity of the surroundings. Here, beneath the vast night sky, he was not the leader of the largest religious institution in the world, but merely a seeker, an individual searching for wisdom that might otherwise be lost amidst the chaos of worldly affairs. Slowly, he pushed open the weathered wooden door, which protested with a gentle creak, revealing a space that was as much a sanctuary as it was a sanctuary of the mind. Inside, the humble interior was illuminated by a single oil lamp, its flickering flame casting dancing shadows on rough earthen walls. The small space contained a bed fashioned from simple wooden frames and woven blankets, a sturdy table cluttered with his modest belongings, and a shelf filled with scrolls, manuscripts, and well-thumbed books that seemed to glow softly in the dim light. This was the hermit's domain, a place where spiritual truths and ancient knowledge intertwined, guarded fiercely and shared sparingly, often only with those deemed worthy of understanding. Leo XIV took a moment to breathe, his gaze sweeping over the room, appreciating the simplicity and humility that defined this refuge. Here in the silence, he felt closer to divine inspiration, his mind open to the wisdom that had been accumulated over centuries. Upon the table sat a small, carefully wrapped box containing relics, possibly an ancient amulet or a piece of scripture, handed down through generations, said to possess mystical powers or divine protection. These artifacts embodied centuries of belief, secret traditions passed through whispers, and sacred rites safeguarded by those few who knew of their existence. The hermit himself was a figure shrouded in enigma. Old beyond his years, with a face carved with lines of experience and wisdom, he was reputed to be a man who had dedicated his entire life to understanding the divine mysteries and the secrets of the universe. Rumours whispered that he possessed knowledge of ancient, forbidden texts, hidden truths that could challenge dogmas or illuminate deeper spiritual insights. Stories told of how he had once been a scholar within the church but had chosen a life of solitude when faced with truths too profound or dangerous for public dissemination. When Leo XIV entered, the hermit looked up from his humble seat on a woven mat, eyes twinkling with a combination of curiosity and compassion. Despite the age and the outward simplicity, there was an aura about him, an unmistakable sense that he carried within him a wellspring of insight, a bridge between worlds. The Pope moved forward cautiously, knowing that this meeting was not by coincidence, but by divine purpose. He placed a small offering on the table, a token of respect, perhaps a relic or a symbolic gift, acknowledging the importance of this rare encounter. The hermit welcomed him with a quiet nod, gestures that transcended language, as he gestured for Leo to sit beside him. For hours, the two figures sat in silent communion, exchanging intense glances and unspoken understanding. It was as if they communicated through a language older than words, shared thoughts, visions, and insights that flowed like a sacred current beneath the surface of their conversation. The hermit listened intently as Leo spoke of his doubts, his hopes for the future of the Church, and his quest for higher understanding beyond traditional doctrine. In return, the hermit revealed snippets of ancient wisdom, mystical teachings, and esoteric philosophies that had been guarded for generations. He discussed celestial alignments and hidden symbolism embedded within religious iconography, hinting at a deeper, universal truth that transcended the monumental structure of dogma. He spoke of the importance of personal enlightenment and the need to balance faith with understanding, an idea that resonated deeply with Leo. The hermit's voice was calm and reassuring. In the heart of Rome, beneath layers of history and beneath the very foundations of the Vatican itself, there was a secret chamber, an underground auditorium that few even suspected existed. Unlike the grand basilicas and majestic halls above ground, this clandestine space was hidden deep beneath the city's streets, accessible only through a series of concealed tunnels and forgotten doorways. Its existence was whispered about in legends among the oldest church officials, spoken of as a place where the voice of the common people could be heard, far from the glare of papal authority and media scrutiny. It was a sanctuary for truth seekers, a space where the voices of ordinary Romans could speak freely, uninhibited by hierarchy or expectation. Pope Leo XIV had come to cherish this secret chamber as a vital tool in his ongoing quest for genuine understanding. Every night, he slipped away from the high corridors of the Vatican, taking great care to avoid detection, and made his way through narrow, winding tunnels that had been abandoned for decades. He knew precisely when the chamber was most likely to be empty, late at night, when the city's noise and the world's awareness of his movements diminished. Cloaked in a nondescript attire, he moved stealthily, navigating through the labyrinth like a shadow, until finally reaching the bottom of an ancient stairwell hidden behind a false wall. The chamber itself was modest in size, but charged with a potent atmosphere. Its walls were lined with age-worn wooden benches and a crude platform for speakers or performers. Yet its true power lay in what it represented: a direct channel of communication between the church's leader and the people he served. The air inside was thick with anticipation and unspoken questions, fears and hopes. Here, the typical hierarchy dissolved into a collective, seeking understanding, a raw, unfiltered expression of faith, doubts, and aspirations from voices that rarely shared their true feelings in public. It was a space that refused to be dominated by pomp or pretense, a place where truth could emerge in its purest form. Leo XIV entered quietly, his eyes adjusting to the dimness. A small, flickering candle illuminated the space, casting shifting shadows on the worn wooden walls. He took a seat among the gathered crowd, ordinary Romans, workers, artisans, farmers and students, whose faces bore the marks of life's struggles and dreams. Many looked at him with a mixture of reverence, curiosity, and a faint trace of skepticism, sensing that he was not simply there as a figure of authority, but as someone willing to listen, truly listen, to the heart of their concerns. Tonight, the atmosphere was charged with a mixture of nervous excitement and hope. As this was no ordinary gathering, it was a deliberate act of transparency and humility. The Pope's presence was both a blessing and a challenge, for he knew that in this moment he would hear truths that could be difficult, perhaps even dangerous, to face. As the room settled into quiet anticipation, a voice from the crowd broke the silence, timid yet resolute, asking questions about the Church's role in modern life, its relevance, and how it could better serve the needs of the people rather than its own traditions. The questions ranged from the personal. Many expressed feelings of spiritual doubt or dissatisfaction, to the systemic, touching on issues like corruption, injustice, and societal inequality. Some spoke of the loss of faith in religious institutions, while others passionately beseeched the Church to reform itself, to become more compassionate and inclusive. Leo listened carefully, his face an expression of sincere consideration, occasionally nodding or offering gentle gestures of encouragement. Each reply he gave was carefully measured, acknowledging the concerns without dismissing them outright. It was clear to everyone present that in this space, power was secondary to understanding, and faith was being reshaped through honest dialogue. In this underground chamber, Leo XIV found invaluable insights, clues to the collective heartbeat of his flock. The raw voices of those in the crowd revealed struggles and truths that the hierarchy above often preferred to ignore, yet they held the key to guiding the Church toward a new, more authentic future. Some of the questions opened a window into societal issues, touching on poverty, education, and the role of women and marginalised groups within religious life. Others probed more profound spiritual doubts, asking whether faith could truly be rooted in love, mercy, and understanding rather than dogma and ritual. As the night wore on, the exchange grew more personal and heartfelt. The Pope began to see himself not only as a spiritual leader, but as a servant to the very people he sought to guide. He realised that their voices, if truly heard and respected, could serve as a catalyst for change, an opportunity to realign the Church's teachings with the lived experiences of those it served. Many in the room felt a renewed sense of hope that their words mattered, that their struggles could transcend mere complaints and spark meaningful reform. Meanwhile, Leo reflected deeply on what these voices revealed about the state of faith in Rome itself. Within the modest confines of an unassuming art studio tucked away in a quiet corner of Rome, a different kind of sacred work was taking place, one that blurred the lines between faith, symbolism, and artistic expression. This studio, often dismissed as merely a place for amateur painters or forgotten craftsmen, held a secret that few knew about, an intentional sanctuary for revolutionary artistic creation, imbued with hidden meanings and powerful messages. It was here that Pope Leo XIV driven by a desire to communicate with a broader audience beyond sermons and scriptures, sought to harness the transformative power of art as a tool for spiritual and societal reflection. The studio was filled with an eclectic collection of paints, brushes of various sizes, canvases both large and small, and a multitude of sketches still in progress. The air was thick with the scent of oil, linseed, and aged wood, an aroma that spoke of tradition yet hinted at innovation. The walls were draped with provocative images, Sacred Heart motifs interwoven with modern symbols, scenes from scripture reimagined with contemporary settings, and abstract compositions that challenged viewers to reconsider their perceptions of divine harmony and chaos. It was a space where creativity flowed freely, unrestrained by conventional religious iconography or the strict dictates of church art. Leo XIV had come to the studio not merely as a patron or observer, but as an active participant. Guided by a mysterious yet highly talented artist, someone whose name had been deliberately kept under wraps, he set out to create pieces that would be both aesthetically compelling and laden with subtle allegories. These artworks were not intended for the traditional churches or cathedral walls. Rather, they aimed to spark dialogue, inspire introspection, and quietly question the boundaries of doctrinal interpretation. They were messages layered with symbolism, accessible to those who looked beyond the surface and understood the language of hidden signs. The artist, a master of visual storytelling, was a person of intense vision, someone who believed that true spiritual enlightenment could be conveyed through visuals that transcended language and cultural barriers. Together, they discussed themes of divine compassion, human frailty, and societal injustice, embedding these concepts within intricate patterns, cryptic symbols, and nuanced colour schemes. Rich reds and deep blues spoke of passion and serenity. Chaotic brushstrokes hinted at inner turmoil, while harmonious arrangements reflected unity and hope. Each stroke of the brush was deliberate, each choice of imagery part of a larger coded message. The artist's studio was more than just a place for creating art. It was an experimental sanctum, a laboratory of ideas where faith and critical thought intertwined. They debated whether art could serve as a form of silent protest or a subtle form of prophetic warning. The artist believed that the church's message could be delivered not only through words, but through images that could resonate deeply within the human subconscious. The Pope, invigorated by this perspective, encouraged bold experimentation, hoping that these jagpum, when understood, could serve as a catalyst for spiritual awakening and social change. They also explored the power of symbols, generic religious images, altered or combined with contemporary emblems, to provoke a re-evaluation of long-held beliefs. For instance, a depiction of Christ could be reimagined with modern attire, or the cross could be subtly intertwined with symbols of justice or human rights, elements that challenge viewers to think about the universality of divine love and the relevance of faith in a changing world. These works became visual parables, accessible on multiple levels. Some conformed to traditional themes, while others hinted at deeper, more revolutionary truths hidden beneath serene landscapes or abstract designs. Leo XIV was particularly invested in artwork that questioned authority yet conveyed hope. He believed strongly that art was a powerful, peaceful way to confront societal injustices and to inspire compassion. Through these creative projects, He envisioned a church that embraced inner spirituality, inner struggles, and societal responsibilities, all conveyed through imagery that appealed not only to the devout, but to the skeptics and the disillusioned as well. As days turned into nights and the artist laboured into the early hours, the results of their collaboration began to emerge. A series of paintings, sketches, and mixed media pieces that challenged viewers to look deeper, think harder, and feel more profoundly. These artworks were not meant to be easy or superficial. They were designed to be thought-provoking, to ignite curiosity, and to stimulate conversation. Like sacred parables rendered in visual form, they carried layered meanings, hidden messages of hope, warnings of complacency, calls for empathy. In the quiet solitude of this clandestine studio, Leo XIV found a new voice, one that transcended traditional sermons or textual teachings. Here, in the visceral language of colour and form, he sought to communicate the core of spirituality: love, mercy, understanding, and justice. The paintings became vessels for universal truths, accessible to everyone, yet holding secrets for those willing to look beyond the obvious. Perhaps, through these images, he believed the Church could reach into the soul of modern society and spark a quiet revolution, one painted in subtle strokes, but resonating with profound power. As dawn approached, and the faint light of the morning began to push back the shadows of night, Pope Leo XIV found himself once again returning to the familiar sanctity of the Vatican. His journey through the night, filled with clandestine meetings, secret explorations, and whispered truths, was slowly coming to a close. Each step he took on the familiar marble corridors carried a weight of reflection and anticipation. An understanding that what he had uncovered and experienced during these hours was about to shift the course of his life, and perhaps the future of the Church itself. Over the course of many nights, Leo had adopted a quiet rhythm, departing from the grand, opulent chambers of the Vatican just as the city's lights dimmed and the world outside slumbered. His routine was a delicate dance of secrecy and purpose, slipping past guards, navigating labyrinthine tunnels, and slipping into hidden chambers and remote locations where truths could be uncovered away from the public eye. He understood that each movement was a piece of a larger puzzle, a silent act of rebellion woven into the fabric of tradition, aiming to uncover what had long been obscured. Now, as the morning sunlight pierced the sky and illuminated the domes and bell towers of Rome, he maintained a composed exterior. Yet internally, he was a whirl of thoughts and emotions, contemplating the profound revelations of the night. Every secret, every discovery, be it in ancient manuscripts, art, or the voices of the people, claimed a piece of his consciousness. The truths he now carried, hidden in the depths of his mind and heart, were like seeds waiting to be planted in a future ripe for change. Leo's journey had been driven by an unwavering conviction, an understanding that genuine faith must evolve and adapt to the realities of the world. He envisioned a church that was not just a repository of dogma, but a living, breathing entity rooted in compassion, understanding, and shared human experience. The knowledge he acquired during his nocturnal excursions was both a burden and a gift. Powerful insights that, if revealed at the right moment, could foster unity and renewal, or, if mishandled, spark chaos. Stepping into his personal chambers, Leo carefully laid aside the few artifacts and documents he had brought back with him, symbols of the truths uncovered, reflections of his ongoing internal struggle. He approached a small mirror, gazing at his own reflection, trying to reconcile the man he saw with the man shaped by nights of secret exploration. The face looking back was both familiar and changed, bearing the marks of solitude, determination, and the weight of responsibility. It was in those quiet moments that he summoned the resolve to face whatever awaited him. He knew that the path ahead was fraught with peril. Revealing this new understanding, these truths, would threaten the very authority, traditions, and political stability of the institution he loved. Yet, at the same time, he sensed that withholding would be a betrayal of his conscience. The delicate balance between necessity and caution pressed heavily on him. Every decision he made in those subsequent days would be pivotal, whether to quietly guide the Church through subtle reforms or to bring the revelations to light in a manner that would shake the foundations of centuries of doctrine. As he prepared himself, Leo's thoughts turned to the future. Could the Church embrace this new vision of faith, one infused with empathy, knowledge, and humility? Or would tradition and fear suppress the truths that he now carried? He understood that he held a rare power, an opportunity not only to redefine the Church's spiritual message, but to ultimately heal divisions and foster a genuine, meaningful connection with the people. It was a daunting responsibility, yet one he accepted with unwavering faith. In the days that followed, Leo carefully crafted his approach, choosing moments of discretion and subtlety to introduce new ideas, insights, and reforms. Whether through symbolic gestures, encrypted messages, or carefully curated teachings, he aimed to plant seeds of change that would grow over time. His actions were deliberate and measured, understanding that a sudden upheaval could cause chaos rather than clarity. Throughout this process, the world outside remained unaware of the quiet revolution unfolding within the heart of the Vatican. Publicly, Leo maintained his role as the spiritual leader, delivering sermons and leading Mass with his usual grace. Yet inwardly, he was transformed, no longer merely a pope bound by tradition, but a visionary with a divine mission to elevate faith beyond the confines of dogma. The revelations he had uncovered, nurtured during those secret nights, now intertwined with his every decision and every word. As days turned into weeks, hints of change began to ripple through the Church and the broader society. Small gestures, an ambiguous message here, a reform subtly introduced there, started to resonate with those who sensed the awakening. His leadership became less about asserting control and more about inspiring trust in the enduring power of love and understanding. His ultimate hope was that these quiet sparks would ignite a much larger movement, one rooted in compassion, humility, and a renewed understanding of divine truth.